30 East Drive looks like any other modest brick house on a quiet street in Pontefract, England. Neat lawn, quiet neighbors, and that familiar red brick British architecture. But behind that ordinary exterior lies a history so disturbing, it's been called the most violent haunting in Britain. This house didn't just rattle doorknobs or whisper through walls. It attacked, it tormented, it terrified. And what lived inside wasn't just a ghost, it was something darker. Locals call it the Black Monk. And to this day, people cross the road to avoid walking too close. Because the thing inside 30 East Drive, it never left.